Grand jury has indicted one officer on criminal charges in the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor in Louisville. And they are talking right now. The attorney general is currently talking. Remember that same black attorney general who talked at the Republican National Convention. That's kind of what's going on. I'm going to give you guys the entire case, what happened, who Brett Hankerson is, and why he was charged. Anyway, the Kentucky Attorney General is currently taking questions, so we're going to go to that right now, okay?
Are you going to release the full grand jury report?
Well, I am right now, because there is a pending indictment. I think it is our practice, and because there is an ongoing FBI investigation, to revisit that question, but at this point I don't think it's appropriate for us to release any information. Well, that is what the evidence shows, is that there was nothing conclusive to demonstrate that any of his bullets hit.
The door open for the fact that maybe one of the shots did hit her, or?
Well, again, all the evidence was given to the grand jury, and they made the decision that wanton endangerment was the charge to file or to indict against Mr. Hankerson.
The entire criminal justice system is completely fundamentally broken. This is yet another example of this. This is a perfect representation of how flawed and how broken our criminal justice system is, okay? From the grand jury to the indictment to the attorney general to the police officers engaging in the no-knock warrant, our criminal justice system, our policing system is structured in a way to have outcomes exactly like the one we're seeing right now. It is remarkable that a black man can stand on stage like this and also participate in the system with someone who holds a significant amount of power, someone who literally invoked Breonna Taylor's name at the Republican National Convention. No, when you say it has nothing to do with color, him being a black man absolutely is significant. Are you kidding me? We're talking about the blatant assassination of a EMT, emergency room technician who wanted to become a nurse, a good person overall by every metric, every standard, who was carelessly murdered in her own apartment for an absolutely nonsensical, completely failed no-knock warrant, where the assumption was that this was a drug dealer's house when it wasn't even a drug dealer's house. There are so many fundamental flaws. There's so many different parts that where the carelessness within the process leads to these sorts of outcomes. The judge that allowed them to have a no-knock warrant, to execute a no-knock warrant on a house just because it had had a couple packages delivered to it, like, that's insane to me. The fact that the officers did that no-knock warrant, sent away the ambulance, despite what proper procedure at that moment dictates you have to have an ambulance in a situation like that for this specific reason, that is a gigantic failure. The fact that they literally tried to charge the boyfriend with murder and only dropped when we found out about the investigation and when we found out about the details. The fact that they tried to say that Breonna Taylor was not an innocent person. All parts of this, every single part of this is just completely broken.
The criminal law is not meant to respond to every sorrow and grief, and that is true here. But my heart breaks for the loss of Miss Taylor.
Where is the NRA? I need to hear from all the gun lovers in the NRA. I need to hear them defend the victim and the victim's family in this circumstance, who was well within their rights to shoot back when they thought that people were breaking into their apartment. Completely innocent otherwise. Daniel Cameron is Mitch McConnell's protege, by the way. Like, Daniel Cameron, this person is Mitch McConnell's protege. Just remember that.
If the grand jury concluded that the bullets that went into a neighboring apartment were fired with some wanton recklessness, then how do they say that the bullets that entered Breonna Taylor's body were somehow not fired with the same wanton recklessness? And again, we get back into that force field that police generally have. They have a warrant allowing them to come into the premises. Then they have the self-defense argument. But it result in a very peculiar situation where you have bullets that hit nobody. Those are wanton and reckless. Bullets that killed someone, well, those bullets, those are different bullets. And it'll be interesting to see.
Literal NA logic, by the way. How the could you consider bullets that struck a different apartment to be endangering someone's life when you literally killed someone, and that was not considered at any point illegal. It's exactly, yeah, it is like tear gas logic. Tear gas is a weapon to control and disperse crowds. It's riot control, and it's actually less than lethal. But when you kick the tear gas back, then it turns into a lethal weapon. When you kick the tear gas back at cops, that's a lethal weapon. When you take a cop's taser, that's a lethal weapon. When the cop uses a taser on you, that's less than lethal. When the cops use a tear gas on you, that's less than lethal. That's normal. That's just how it's supposed to work. Now, this reminds me of that famous Florida case that I've covered in the past where I can't remember the name of the person who got killed in his own garage for the crime of listening to Drake too loudly in front of his own daughter, where they offered the family 25 cents each. They offered the family 25 cents each for executing their father. They offered $4, and it ultimately came down to 25 cents each. The family actually, in February, filed a lawsuit to overturn the $4 verdict. It was literally like a fuck you. You know what I mean? It was basically a fuck you to all the kids and the spouse of Gregory Hill Jr. by that very same justice system, that criminal justice system. The same situation is occurring here where they geared up for riots ahead of time, knowing that this grand jury indictment was going to be absolutely terrible. And they care more about preserving the very same system that ends up in certain instances, in a lot of instances, as a byproduct, executing black people even in their own homes. Defending that process is more important to them than anything else. And then people ask, why are people rioting? Why are people angry? This is why people are rioting. This is why people are angry. Because they have no justice in their lives. They have no peace, no law, no order in their lives. That's why they get mad. The very same state that's supposed to protect us and keep us safe and hold us equal in the blind eye of the law on the scales of justice turns around and very simply says, there is no equality here. There is no blind justice here. We will defend our henchmen. We will protect our henchmen even if they murder you.
The fact that this has received so much scrutiny, I think it'd be inappropriate for me to share the information about the makeup of the grand jury, just to the extent I can protect.
Oh,
them.
why not? Wait, oh, you can't talk about the racial makeup of the grand jury? Well, that's interesting. I want to know.
For this office,
don't you want to know? I feel like that's in the matter of public interest to know. Just remember that the prosecutor is the one who's supposed to be presenting evidence here to the grand jury. For those of you who are going to say, well, I'm sorry.
Well,
it's not up to the attorney general, or it's not up to the system here. It's the grand jury. One, it's literally the prosecutor who puts forward the evidence so that the grand jury deliberates on it, or the grand jury decides on. So it's 1000% up to him. Okay? For you to say that this person is not even remotely responsible in this case for the indictment and the lack of indictment, rather, you either are oblivious to how this process works, or you are purposely being obtuse because you don't really care about injustice. Another reminder that Daniel Cameron literally spoke at the RNC, had the gall to bring up Breonna Taylor's name at the RNC to his own needs, and is Mitch McConnell's personal protege.
Officers knocked on the door. Sir, in the beginning, you said that you spoke with Breonna Taylor's family today. I know you can't tell us word for word what they said to you, but how was the news received?
Well, it was a hard meeting, but it was a difficult meeting. And when I ran for this office, I ran because I had some singular ideas in mind. And you never know exactly what issues you'll be presented with and what challenges you'll be presented with. And today was one of those challenges, to have to sit in that room.
Man, I'm so sorry for you, dude.
Information.
I'm so sorry. It's look at him. He's literally talking about him. He's talking about how difficult it was for him. Jesus Christ, dude. Oh, dude, you had a bad meeting, dog? Man, that's so sad that You are the real victim in this circumstance where you had to deliver the bad news that you played a significant role in dishing out. The civil trial immediately and swiftly offered $12 million to Breonna Taylor's family. But Breonna Taylor's family very specifically stated that it wasn't about the monetary compensation, but that there should be criminal charges against the officers that shot and killed their daughter, Breonna Taylor. That did not happen today. No justice was served today. Not only was no justice served today, but there was a big you on top of that. Just like I mentioned, similar to the Gregory Vaughn Hill Jr. case in Florida, they turned around and indicted someone specifically on wanton endangerment for firing shots, some of which struck the neighbor's apartment. That was the only improper handling here. As in, what you need to understand here, and they are literally right. Like, they are literally right when they say, technically, under the letter of the law, under the rule of the law, they didn't really do anything wrong. You know, you got a judge to sign off on a no-knock warrant. You come in with a key to the city, that big-ass hammer. You break through the door. Someone fires the shot at you. You fire back. Technically, all of that is the rule of the law being followed to a T. That is at the heart of the fucking problem. That is why you can't just say, let's vote, let's just vote, and we'll just vote away racism in the criminal justice system. They were plainclothes officers. They did not have body cameras. They sent away the ambulance. That is the problem here, folks. That is what the fucking issue is. The issue is that you can execute a no-knock warrant, freak the fuck out of the person who legally can have a weapon, by the way, and is illegally defending their home against cops that at least the person who shot Breonna Taylor's boyfriend says they did not hear cops say that they were cops at all and that there was a police raid at all. We will never know. It's a he said, she said situation. What we know is that they murdered an innocent person. They went into a house that they should not be going into to begin with on very little evidence. The judge that allowed them to enter that house, the judge that signed off on a no-knock warrant for that house, is culpable. The officers that did not turn on their body cameras are culpable. The officers that fired into that house are culpable. The fact that they conducted this raid without enough evidence, every part of the system is broken. That's why we say, like, body cameras actually did not even help deal with this problem, because in the absence of accountability, if you have no accountability for murder, then you have no accountability for taking off your body camera. You have no accountability for wearing a body camera or suspiciously turning it off. There's no accountability for murder in the in our criminal justice system. Why would there be accountability for not wearing a body camera? Now, I just want to do a refresher here for everyone who was unfamiliar with the Breonna Taylor case. Let's start from the top really quickly. I just wanted to get into the prosecutor. Or the attorney general talking about the grand jury indictment. I'm going to talk about the grand jury indictment, specifically about who got indicted and what they got indicted on. I briefly mentioned it, but before that, I want a quick refresher for everyone who is unfamiliar with the case. I'm going to walk you through the details. Miscalculation by police. Remember, neutral language, passive tone. Miscalculation by police led to the death of Breonna Taylor. Now, this is CNN. CNN is supposed to be Clinton News Network. CNN is supposed to be the libtard media. Look at the way that they cover the case. Miscalculation by police led to the death of Breonna Taylor, as though Breonna Taylor slipped and fell when she got scared because cops were knocking too hard on her door. And not that they executed a no-knock warrant and shot into the house when the Breonna Taylor's boyfriend thought that their house was being broken into, where the officers shot and killed Breonna Taylor with 6 bullets.
Police raided Taylor's apartment under the suspicion she was involved with handling money and drugs for an alleged Louisville drug dealer, her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover. When it was all over, police found no drugs, no money in her apartment. Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician who worked 2 jobs, who had never been convicted of a crime, was dead, shot 5 times by police.
911, Operator Harris, where's your emergency?
I don't know what's happening. Somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend.
That's the boyfriend calling 911 from inside the apartment, by the way. So when you hear that, when someone breaks into your apartment in the middle of the night and you are a lawful gun owner and you pull it out and you start shooting, when you hear how terrified he is, crying that his girlfriend is dying, she got shot and killed, perhaps you develop a better understanding that this system is fundamentally broken. Perhaps you can maybe try to comprehend why people feel like there is no law and order in their lives, why there is no justice or no peace in their lives. This is it. The lack of accountability, the carelessness when dealing with black people, when they can just be collateral damage, and the liberal media, even when they're covering it, covered as a miscalculation that led to the death of Breonna Taylor, as though these are separate things that happened, that just seemingly occurred. When the grand jury indictment is only delivered to one of the cops, not for the murder, by the way, but for firing into a window where the blinds were closed, which is improper, which led to wanton endangerment as 3 bullets struck a different neighbor's apartment. This entire system is broken. And I mean broken in the sense that it's not doing what it claims it's supposed to do. There is no accountability. There is no justice. There is no law. There is no peace. There is no order. If you are poor, you're poor and white as well. Or if you're black, or if you're brown, and the people will just steamroll over you. These are people who are supposed to protect and serve us. From the cops all the way to the attorney general. They're supposed to deliberate on behalf of our best interests. They're supposed to enact judgments that are supposed to protect us. When there is a gigantic failure in that entire process, so glaring and so obvious, when the institutions that are supposed to protect us are protecting themselves instead, in instances where they have killed someone so obviously, why would you expect people to sit the fuck at home and take it? Especially when they've sat at home and taken it for years. They've written letters to congresspersons. They've protested peacefully. They kneeled for the national anthem. And it still hasn't gotten better. And by not years, centuries, I mean years in contemporary American politics. Black Lives Matter has been going on since 2013, since Trayvon Martin was executed by George Zimmerman, since the Ferguson protests. That's what I mean. Now, the reason why Republicans in the upcoming days are going to focus on the riots that are going to be inevitable, rather than the case itself and the horrific injustice committed here, is because they can't focus on the case itself. Because the case itself is horrible. It might be legal, but it is immoral. The reason why I don't care is because it's yet another black person in the good old, decades old war on drugs. Okay, it's just more collateral damage. Who gives a fuck? The problem is you know about it. Otherwise, we would not even be talking about it. That's why they're going to focus on the riots. That's where they're going to say outside groups are bringing in, I don't know, tools to riot. Black Bloc Antifa members are flying into Kentucky to do rioting. That's why the institutions geared up for this specific moment, knowing full well that the officers were not going to be held accountable. That's why they were like, we are going to do this. We're going to go forward with this decision. And we know for a fact that we're going to go forward with this decision and the backlash is going to be tremendous, but we need to get ready for the backlash.
Banged on the door, no response. Banged on it again, no response. At that point, we started announcing ourselves, please come to the door. Please, we have a search warrant.
Inside, Breonna Taylor wasn't alone. She had just dozed off next to her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker.
If the boyfriend knew that they were cops, why didn't he mention that on the 9/11 call? Why did he call 911 and said, somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend? You literally have to think that, like, cops were coming in, okay? Cops were coming in, and the dude knew that there were cops, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a cop kill. Like, that's what you have to think. And I think a lot of Republicans or some people who look at this case legitimately do think that. They think, like, he had the wherewithal to know that there were cops coming into his house, shoot them, try to get a kill, and then even act like he didn't know that they were cops on 9/11 to absolve himself. Like on the 911 call to absolve himself. You have to be psychotic to believe this.
Mattingly is on administrative reassignment, along with a second officer who fired shots that night, Miles Cosgrove. The third police officer to fire his weapon, Detective Brett Hankerson, was standing outside and fired 10 rounds through a closed and curtained patio door. He has been fired, is appealing, but according to Louisville's police chief, his blind shooting displayed an extreme indifference to the value of human life, which his lawyers deny. The gunshots whizzed through walls, windows, bullet holes were found everywhere, in the kitchen, bedrooms, in a neighbor's apartment with small children nearby. Multiple neighbors called 911 asking for police, only finding out later it was the police.
I wonder if the police were announcing their presence, but then they were basically executing a drive-by shooting, pretty much. Or what it resembled in the aftermath of the chaos was literally what a fucking drive-by shooting would look like. I wonder why the cops still claim that they very clearly made their presence known. Here's the thing. When this shit pops off in your neighborhood, you still have to call the cops. That is at the heart of the problem. Because that's the cops. The cops are the ones who are causing chaos. I wonder how you would react if you were shot in the leg and had the means to defend yourself. I wonder how you would react if someone broke into your goddamn home and started shooting. What kind of question is this? Who's the first person who started it? What the is wrong with so many people's brains, dude? It's not like Breonna Taylor's boyfriend walked into a police precinct and shot someone in the leg. He didn't walk into their fucking house and shot them. The cops broke into his home. Are you insane? I mean, there is no logic here. There is literally no reason here. Like, there is no logical reasoning you can have. Why the fuck is there a castle doctrine? Why the fuck is there a Second Amendment if you can't use your fucking weapon in your own home? I am the biggest, like, soy boy libtard when it comes to gun laws, okay? I love shooting guns, but what do I always say? There are certain fucking cases where it is completely reasonable and completely allowed to use your fucking weapon. This is that case. When you're in your apartment and someone breaks into your goddamn apartment, plainclothes officer in the darkness of the night, break into your apartment after knocking on your goddamn door, you don't know what the fuck's going on, or you start shooting, completely fucking reasonable. And it's not a new thing, as ammo law, I think, posted multiple times. No-knock warrants have resulted in deaths many times over. There's a reason why we have a concept called swatting in this country, okay? There's a reason why it's illegal to just, like, swat someone. No-knock warrants and swatting oftentimes lead to deaths. There's a reason why we have a concept called suicide by cop, because we know that the violent paramilitary force of the police is going to end up getting a kill because they operate like they're looking for goddamn blood. LARPing militias in Louisville prepare for a rough night. A militia group marches up 7th Street in downtown Louisville. They wouldn't identify in their group, but I know you've seen some here before. Great. I'm glad that MEAL Team 6 is on the job, boys. I'm glad that MEAL Team 6 is ready to defend the tyrannical police state in all of their pursuits of executing black people. I'm so glad. What leads you to get horny when you see a case of injustice and you premeditatively go out and go, people are going to protest this and I want to be there to kill them? Like, that's what this is. I just want you to make no mistake. What is happening here when Republicans take it to the streets, not to be side by side with the Black Lives Matter protesters in the aftermath of a grand jury indictment that clearly shows the disdain that the criminal justice system has for black people, even when they get murdered in their own homes. If you go out of the streets, you're basically saying, like, all the black people, I don't even want them to be angry. I'm going to kill them. That's precisely what you're doing here. Okay? Make no mistake. These people have no legitimate grievances. They are just there to get legal kills. They're just there because they want an opportunity to shoot at some live targets, just like Kyle Rittenhouse did. And they now know that you will be glorified as a hero by right-wing media and even maybe the president if you do that. So it's great. It's great that this is the precedent that we set. I'm sure that this won't be a gigantic problem in the near future, maybe even tonight. It will. I'm sure it wouldn't be I'm sure no one could have seen this coming. No one could have seen the death and destruction coming from 7 miles ahead when the president and also every right-wing psychopath on the internet was hailing Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero. Who could have seen this coming? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't these hogs gear up and try to get a confirmed kill when they know that that kind of shit gets massive play in right-wing circles? Why wouldn't they do that? To every single person that defended Kyle Rittenhouse as well, you are disgusting, okay? You are a disgusting person, and the blood that is coming for Louisville, Kentucky tonight is on your hands too.